Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pearson the Vale. Tonight we have Professor Robert Bauer, and we're going to get into frequencies and vibrations again, and we're going to try to continue this little series, mini series, I guess it is, and try to get down to the very essence of what frequencies and vibrations are. And as you noticed, I'm running solo today, so I guess Robert will be my co-host tonight instead of necessarily our guests. And Jane's just taking a little time and recharging her batteries, and she will be back eventually. You know, whether it's next week or whenever, she'll definitely come back. So she's just taking a little time off tonight to rest and relax, and you'll see her in chat if you haven't already. And we'll just go ahead and bring the professor up. Hi, Robert.
How you doing, Gerald?
Good. Glad to have you back.
Oh, it's nice to be had.
Like I was saying in the beginning, I might as well just make you a co-host now. This is like your third or fourth time on.
Well, you know, what happens is that becomes real dangerous because as we were talking before we came on, you know, the last show we were supposed to do vibrations and frequencies, and somebody threw a shiny object out there and I started chasing it, and then you started following me, and then you started pushing me, and it's like all of a sudden we were an hour or so in. It was, where's vibration and frequency? Yeah. You guys are talking a bunch of woo-woo.
We'll have to leave some breadcrumbs and some string trails out so we can get back to where we were.
Well, I did go back and take a look at that part that we were supposed to get into, and I said, you know, maybe this time you and I can kind of stay within the guardrails. We can, you know, hang two off the side occasionally, but if we stay focused, we might actually get to some information that is not only talked about in all kinds of different ways and all kinds of different ideologies and sciences and philosophies and theologies and all these different things just that describe events and experiences that we all have in some way, shape, or form that are all based on frequencies and vibration.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about that before, where a piece of music will bring you right back into that essence of where you were that day, that time, and what was going on in your life, whether it's sad or whether it's something nice and that you were happy about.
Well, and that's the thing is I like to use that as many times somebody, you know, brings up the topic of time travel and, you know, both the anecdotal and questionable empirical data, as well as just the experiences that people have. The easiest way to me is to look at what is time travel is listen to a song that you grew up with. And that is a set of sonic frequencies that is embedded, is imprinted on your being, in your mind, and the way that you visualize things, and that ethereal empirical experience that you have. So, I mean, every time I listen to Freebird, I remember driving from LA down to San Diego because my girlfriend at the time, who lived in San Diego, who I had just left, right? So I just made it back to LA. It was like a Sunday night, I think. And I get back and she calls me. We had the phones, you know, that hung up on the walls, you know,
right,
with no display screen, and then had this funny dial thing, and you had to figure out, you know, which finger to put where. Kind of the way we do with our kind of the way we do with our phones now. I look at the stuff. I can't do the thumb thing. I fat finger that. It's like I've got to sit there and zone in and go plunk plunk. Oh, wait, no, not that one. Damn it. Where's that backspace? Right.
You know, the one, we're getting off subject again, but you know, the one that kills me is that the backspace, the little X is right next to the send on a lot of the apps. So I'll fat finger that, and then I got a half jumbled sentence that doesn't make sense. I should have just left it alone and sent it. It would have made more sense.
Right. And I'm still of the whole thing. It's like I really do not feel the need to have to or the effort I need to put into doing some kind of alphabetic tapped out message. Hey, this is me.
Right.
Leave a voicemail. Even if, if I don't die, it's like, I'm going to tell you and you're going to hear me tell you. So anyway, I find that's a very interesting part of what we are experiencing from my perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and drop this caveat out there now. Everything and anything that I say tonight is nothing more than my own personal perspective and speculative analytical observations. So all I'm going to talk about is stuff that you can look at it from an empirical perspective. You can have a personal empirical experience and go, yep, that's the way it worked. Can you explain how it worked? Can you explain why it worked? Well, that's where all the real rabbit holes are. But at the end of the day,
I got the mic noise back again, so I'm gonna pop out real quick, and you just keep telling everybody as we begin.
So, we have this incredible experience that we need to make sure we don't not only miss, we don't want to miss it, but that we appreciate it and realize it, recognize it in the reality that we experience, and use that as a key filter, because God knows we need more filters now than we ever have. Filtering out, I mean, the tsunami of the deluge of data is like, are you kidding me? The human mind and the process with which we function in our mind and our consciousness at a very fundamental level, we are pattern recognition and process oriented. So we learn by analogy, right? Metaphors of previous experiences and knowledge. We see how they just, whether they connect or not, and whether you're conscious of that or not is one aspect of it. But the fundamental that you're experiencing and not paying attention to is that that's how it works. So all of the stuff that I'm about to toss on the table is nothing more than my own speculation going, it looks to me like it works like that.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. You always gotta keep your perspective about, everybody's experiences are not always the same. Everybody's perspective is not always the same. And if you can grasp that golden nugget of what they're saying and add it to your big picture to try to make your synopsis or your whole theory, fit for you, then, you're better off.
Yeah. The challenge that I think is one of the main sources of consternation, frustration, all of the aspects that get in the way of the experience and making it and experiencing it at its fullest is just all of that shit is just covered with a whole bunch of crap, and it inhibits the natural expression and ability that we all have as an innate component of our nature, of our consciousness. So consciousness, we'll talk about that. Talk about the framework and from my perspective about why are frequencies and vibrations an important thing to look at in just the normal experience that we have, both from a mental perspective and a biological perspective. And it's amazing how they're like completely intertwined. They are completely, they're not only joined to the hip, I think they might be kicking boots.
maybe they're quantum entanglement.
I think there's a whole lot of that and maybe some nuance and additions to that term. And that goes back to the point we were making earlier, or I was making earlier, I guess. The words that you use and the definitions of those words are best engaged with when everybody has a common understanding thereof, right?
Yep.
when there's extremes to different edges of what that term originally meant, then it tends to throw all kinds of questionable chaos into the conversation. So when people talk about frequencies and vibrations and crystals and uh, singing bowls and didgeridoos, and I mean, just all of the natural and the most important and the original instrument, the human voice. And the science, let alone just the historical, anecdotal, traditional ways in which the voice has been used as one of the most important components of any culture that we have found. Then the voice meaning words and sounds and symbols and the imagery and this what's also known as steganography, meaning there are multiple layers within that image. You know, they say, you know, painting is worth 1,000 words, right? Well, a symbol is worth 1,000 paintings. That's that's the power and importance of symbology and the sonic, not only the geometry of the, whether it's 2D, 3D, 4D, well, all of the amazing things that you can do today with the tools we have, at least we can get a perspective of imagination on it. But those realms of existence are just a natural experience that we all have. And you have the ability to go in and kind of pick one or two or three, or go focus on this one, that one, or whatever. And that geometry then frames a consistency of the materium, the physical world that we live in. In sonic geometry, it's all about the frequencies and the sounds, and even the fact that, from my perspective, again, once you come out of once you look at everything as information, which is the informatica philosophy that I am really enjoying. And what that means is that everything is information. So every information set is a nugget of news or information. It's a nugget of knowledge within the matrix. And all of that has these delineations. It has ways in which we measure it, whether we have some kind of structural and mathematical component, or it's just the image we see in our mind. There are images that we experience that are indelible, right? You always remember that image. That image is just like that song.
Yeah, it's crazy that, well, I mean, we talked about this a few minutes ago about how a song will bring you right back to that time and that environment and the smells and audio and everything. All your senses are just hitting on high when you hear that one song that brings you back.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even a smell or a memory, like I'll remember my dad being in church as me as a little kid, snuggled up next to his neck, you know, kind of half asleep, and I can still smell his aftershave, and I just get that warm feeling, and I can literally sense that smell. I mean, like it's right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the same experience. One of the smells that does that to me is Old Spice. And that was, you know, back in the 70s. I remember there was a Pierre Cardin, I think, and then a Musk, and a couple of others, but none of them made me just go, pfft. Old Spice just took me back to like 66. I'm like, poof, there I am all of a sudden.
Yep.
So, is anybody paying attention tonight? Are we?
Yes, they are. They're all saying hi, and there's been.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I didn't see it. Yes, there it is.
So
well,
if anybody has
everyone.
any comments or questions, you know, put it in all caps, and as it comes up, I'll try to bring it up, depending on what Robert's talking about at the time, and maybe later in the show, I'll bring up everybody's comments. You know, even if we've already passed what we were talking about, and we might rehash some stuff.
Another recipe for squirrels.
Yep, squirrel.
Oh, look at that! There it goes. What did you say? Oh, what?
So, if you're ready to start your presentation, I guess we can go ahead and start there. Unless I think we've covered everything in the beginning.
We've gone through an outline of it, and I'm just going to again give my speculation on it and try to break it down into a way that has, at least I'm thinking it's more precise and more accurate language to what's being used. So I'm real big on, at least whether it makes sense or not, at least laying it out and going, okay, well, this is what kind of seems to make sense now. Add, subtract what's in there, what can be done with it, if anything. But I think there's a one of the most intense times in our experience where the need for clarity in communication and thought is more important than ever, because the communication has been crap, the thought has been crap, and that's where the bad communication is coming from, and it just feeds on itself, and it's like a cyclical infected parasite. So let's see what we can do here. Let's get into. So I've got some slides, I got some videos, I got some pictures, I got some words, and all the stuff that you kind of expect, I guess. Let's see here. And that you would need. Okay, let's see if this works. I think that's it. All right, let's get a 5 by to see if it shows up and it works the way it's supposed to. Okay, looks like we got a full screen almost, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, take a sip here. Nice. Okay. If any of this doesn't make any sense or needs clarification, please do not hesitate, because I need help too. All right, so this is the second part of what you and I were trying to get to last time. And this is my view on frequencies and vibrations, the metrics in the matrix. So here, you going to go? There we go. So the caveats, as I alluded to in the beginning, this is my speculative perspective of observational neutrality, or spoon. It is my working hypothesis of objective analysis, or whoa. And it ends up wandering of woo, which is wow. So, caveats. It's all about that. So one of the keys is, as I was saying, is when you have a perspective of reality that can account for that which you experience and that which you're told and that which you don't know, then it's all going to be based on information, because our entire reality is based on the information that we get, the filters we process that information through in a pattern recognition and process-oriented experience. So that is, there's no science, there's no theology, there's no philosophy. That's just, to me, as I was saying earlier, to me, that's how it works. So informatica is both a verb in an action sense, meaning that it's the manifestation process of information coming into being, into awareness. It's also a noun in the thing, that it is the information that has been manifested, stuff that's already happened. So it does two things. So when you think about the reality you inhabit, it's information. Information is based on the way that information is defined, delineated, been given distinction of, what it is. And that's just the way we think. There's nothing about how that works that is based on anything other than empirical observational neutrality. So the way that works in my experience is the nature and habits of consciousness. There's certain habits, the way it functions, and there's a nature of the way it does it. It's in a constant creation mode. It's based on, it expresses itself as energy frequencies and what we know as magnetism. It's always in motion. It's in motion in cycles within cycles that then create patterns resulting in novelty or the new. So that's how it works in my experience and the way I think we all experience it. So it's very subjective to the observer's experience, and it happens in the arena of imagination and possibilities, potentials, and probabilities. So as I was mentioning, the way that the mind works, the way our consciousness seems to function and process the information that we experience, which is how we figure out how to relate to our reality. There's a mental process that is just, sometimes it's not necessarily sequential, but this is just the basis of the way it works. Sometimes there's bolts and different things happen at different times, but at a fundamental level, the process system of the mind, the way our mind works, is based on pattern recognition, analogies and metaphors, mapping if in the mathematical construct, having relationship to something else that you can grab onto and you can go, okay, there's something similar there. And then you have preferences, biases, resonance, prejudices, basically the things that you gravitate or resonate with. So that's just the function of the way that we look at a pattern. We see a pattern, we do the mapping and the overlaps and the comparative relationships and all that stuff. And we go, oh, there's something common there, but there's all this other stuff that's unique. And that's just the way that information is. But that's going to be determined by the filters and the way that you think about that experience and process the information around it. Those two things, the pattern recognition and the preferences and biases and the peccadillos and all of that, they happen in pulses, and there's a rhythm and a vibration to them. They happen in a way that they cycle energetic frequencies within and on themselves and their environment. And that creates a frequency set and wave in that direction. What happens as you experience that is this sense of being not only in the now, but also in the next. You're only in the now for the now that happens. You're always moving, though, to, and actually anticipating in a predictive sense, the next. So to me, instead of trying to be in the now, I'm trying to be in the next, because I know the next is coming. The now has happened, and it's great. It has its frequency stamp of the energy signatures and everything wrapped around at the moment that it became. So what you are always doing is you're in the next. You're always looking for and looking ahead and anticipating and projecting and forecasting and predicting what the potential or the possibilities might be of whatever is next. And then you're always using the memories and the recall you have of the patterns that you started with and those experiences as you're processing, determining the next. So, is everybody with me so far? Am I just way out there? Give
No,
me a
I think we're doing
5.5
good.
here.
I think they're saying I got a little bit of audio feedback again, but I'm going to try to mute my mic and just keep on going.
Oh yeah, you do sound you got a little raspy going on there. Okay, so let me check the chat, see if anybody's just going stop whatever you're doing and go to bed or something here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so that's the function of the way that we process, the way that our minds and our consciousness seem to function. There's all kinds of delineations, variations, and extremes of this, but this is the base model, the base function. So I tend to think that what we need to consider in the way that has not been for a long time, and what's interesting to me is that before the Descartes in the 1700s and his whole dualism model separating the materium and from the ethereum, and that's been the materialistic, mechanistic materialistic model that we have today. It's the basis of that. So when they remove the ethereum, well, if you take their model and you look at it from at least what we seem to have been able to put metrics around, meaning the reality and the sciences and the physics, all of the chemistry and everything that goes into all of our sciences today, they're very grit modeled. It's all based on the atom and essentially billiard balls bouncing around. And that's not it at all, because everything is frequencies. Everything's in a waveform. So it also seems to be structured in a basic whole within the whole model. So a holistic philosophy of nature is I think just looking at it again from the fundamental that we know, that we think we have a good degree of comfort in being confident of. So that nature, what is the philosophy of nature that's holistic? Well, it's organized in a series of levels at which the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So subatomic particles within atoms, where the wholeness of the atom is more than the particles. And then the wholeness of the molecule is more than the constituent atoms that make it up. Crystals and cell organisms become societies of organisms. You've seen starlings, as mentioned here, and how the flock is just moving in sync. And you go, how is that happening? Schools of fish. There's some other connection in kind of even maybe a hive kind of model, but there is a connection that they all are on that same wavelength and they are all experiencing that. Well, that to me is one of the many inherent aspects of our consciousness that are written about, that are experienced, that is just an expression of the natural psychic ability of our consciousness and the way that it works. So you get those kind of starlings and those flocks of birds and schools of fish, and they are moving as one. Then you have ecosystems and entire planets like Earth, which is an entire organism made up of all of the life and the components in the other organisms, which are made up of smaller organisms and down to the atomic level. It's all nested. It's a nested, and especially because it has its own self-organizing expression along the lines of Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields, which I think is just spot on, which is essentially memory in nature. How does an acorn know how to grow to be a massive tree? So all the information is apparently in that acorn. And then there's a frequency, a set of energies that it attracts because of its construct, and it attracts itself to continue to grow. So there's an attraction, and this is where we'll get into magnetism, which is where the in my opinion, where all of the sound, light, the frequency sets, it's where all of that comes from.
So do you want to address any questions now, or should we keep on going?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
So there's a Facebook user. You have to log in for us to be able to see your name. So this says Facebook user for us. It says, is a universal frequency set constructs that exist within the universe, or is it subject to the perceiver? Or what about shared experiences? That's a pretty big question.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. There is universal frequency sets, but it's an infinite field of frequencies. The sets are manifestations of groupings of frequencies and the way that they manifest. A table is a grouping, if you will, of the information. But the subjectivity and perspective is unique to the observer. That's what the point I was making earlier on this slide. All of the experience of consciousness is subjective to the unique individual experience of the observer. So it's a personal empirical reality experience or something, right? And only you, and there's nothing else that you can know of anything that you know without having your own personal relationship with it. You can adopt what someone tells you, or what the way in which something is packaged and presented in different belief systems, philosophies, theologies, but all of it is speculation. All of it, in my opinion, is like, well, that's just somebody's personal speculation of information. They could be right, but I have to have my own experience and understanding with it in order to even suss that out. So yeah, there's the personal speculation and perspective that's where you start. And then it's a matter of what resonates with you. Right? What do you feel? Yeah, that kind of makes, I mean, basically it's the common sense bullshit meter. And what's really cool, I guess, kind of cool, is that those of us that have been around a while, say 5 or more decades, we've seen an amazing amount of transformation and change. And when you look at it and you see the volume and the velocity of the information that we have constantly hurled at us, that we have to sort through the mountain of, protected against the tsunami of, swim through the deluge of. I mean, you have to get right to the point of saying, well, I think I better make sure that my filters are cleaned and calibrated because on a regular basis, because the stuff that is clogging consciousness has just been, it's never been this intense with this much before.
All right.
Was there any other questions that we had there?
We just had a comment about matching frequencies from Robin M. Matching frequencies creates telepathy or telepathy, and distance doesn't matter.
That's remote viewing, non-local consciousness. I don't know. People may not realize the amount of energy, effort, focus, and resources that are being put into remote viewing right now. It is, and some of the best ones are providing some amazing results. Verifiable scientific method. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So that ability and that experience is something that is a native part of consciousness. We all have that ability. We all have that same capacity, because that's just the nature of consciousness, which makes us up. So now we're going to get into frequency physics. So the basic way in which the delineation of information about this subject has been set up, or currently in play, is you basically have esoteric telemetry. And I use the word telemetry specifically because it's information coming from a data source. So we get all kinds of telemetry from all the satellites. It's the way GPS works. But it's also what we get from different machines that are used to monitor, medical situations with, EEG machines and all the different telemetry that is available from body scanning and electromagnetics and so forth. And then all kinds of things that we typically hear about that are, for the most part, kind of agreed to definitions: astrology, alchemy, herbalism, numerology, all the different divination, which essentially most of these are, but clairvoyance, astral travel, remote viewing, the amazing stuff that happens with mescaline and psilocybin, which is going to be in my opinion, is going to be one of the most important changes in our medical system, because it will start getting them to finally look at the way that the mind psychology needs to be fixed, and all of the ways in which mentalism is looked at. It's not anywhere near, in my opinion, what it actually is. So they're casting information over a subject matter that is inherently important to all humans, because we need our mental and biological functioning optimally in order to navigate the path that we are on, surviving the tsunami of information, the deluge of data, and all of the crafty ways it's been packaged and bowed and served up. And you look at it and you go, well, why did you package a turd? I mean, this is clearly doesn't make any sense. So why did you package it up all nice and look at it, or expect me to look at it differently than it actually is? Okay. So as I mentioned, magnetism is really the key to what people should think about: vibrations and frequencies. Because magnetism, the polarity construct of that energy force, is the way that the frequencies and the infinite field of frequencies that come from the energy that's expressed by consciousness, all of that is of the same source. It is the same. All of it exists because it came from the same. If I can say that. So magnetism is one of the key expressions that we can see, but it is the source of, in fact, in my opinion, we don't have gravity, we have magnetism. We have scalar and plasma based energy models in the physics that completely transform all the shit they're using today. And it's what Tesla, Keeley, Whitehead, I mean, all these people that Walter Russell, I mean, the amazing amount of information that was accumulated by the people 150 years ago would have completely transformed our environment, our world, the way that we navigate it, inhabit it, and interact with it. So that's on top of all of the, cosmic cousin tech that's been around for the last 100 years. You combine the two and it's like, come on, we would have a completely transformed and different world, because all that we need, everything we have that we need, energy, water, air, communication. It's all in the air that we breathe. It's in our atmosphere. It's all there. And that's what these guys knew.
So we had two questions, and I'll get back to the previous one in a second because it deals with magnetism. But this one is frequencies and vibrations limited to the physical space, or is there something else? You're muted, Robert.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So frequency and vibration are the nature and habit of what energy is. So energy, and that energy is what is in what we call the materium, meaning she's asking about the physical space. So I would put that's the materium. But in the etherium is the stuff where it's not corporeal. It's not something that you can tangibly touch, but it is there, right?
Right.
And that's what frequencies are. Frequencies, we typically think of vibration and frequencies as in some sound perspective or some light perspective, right?
Yep. So the
There's
other
all
one, I don't know if you're finished or not. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead. Hey, Moon.
The other one is souls an EM field with its own acoustic vibrational frequency.
Is the soul an EM field with its own acoustic? Okay, so the electromagnetic field is an aspect, and that's what we're going to get into here is the magnetic fields. That is an aspect of the way, again, in which the energy expresses itself. That's one of we put metrics around what an electromagnetic experience or emanation is. And what's interesting, I think I had it on the previous slide, science there is no delineation, an agreed upon delineation and distinction of what energy is, of what electricity is, of what magnetism is. They don't have that. Quantum mechanics, quantum theory, quantum resonance theory, none of them explain what that is. They got all kinds of men, math machines and models working on it, spending lots of money going, we will calculate the incredible. And from that, we will all know the Maximus. It's like, okay, how's that working out for you? So I hope that answered your question.
They're popping them in now, all the questions. So
yeah, we're getting it now.
What drives the future if we have the ability to experience all frequencies now?
Okay, so because going back to the what is the nature and habit of consciousness? There was that list, that slide I had up there. So consciousness seems to be constantly creating, constantly expressing itself. It seems to be constantly in motion. And then in that motion, it seems to be in a regular cycle of creating something, manifesting something new, novelty. So to be in the future, the way I kind of look at some of the predictive clairvoyance, clairaudience as well, clairsentience, some kind of insight, spark from the blue. It seems to me that if there's an infinite field of frequency sets, and that is the result of consciousness creating energy, because that's just what it does. I don't know why, how, source, or any of that, but the way that it acts, the attributes of it, the characteristics of it, seems to be always in motion. And that motion seems to be always creating the next. May not be the new, but it's the next of what that is. And that just seems to happen in all facets of the conscious experience, of the personal empirical reality that we individually experience as well as collectively. So you got that collective consciousness thing, right? There is the hive mind model, and I think we're actually seeing a lot of that right now in our society. We are seeing highly focused groups of mental energy and frequencies focused on new ways and new packaging for things that used to be something else. You go, well, what is that now? Explain that to me. Where'd you come up with that? What does that mean? Oh, wait a minute. You want me to adhere to using that in this new way without my consent? I don't know. I don't know. So, yeah, Sarah's saying if people develop the ability to manipulate frequency sets, what does that mean, people as a group? Well, I think we're seeing that, don't you? Do you not see? I can say this, and this is just, I'm being observationally neutral in this perspective and speculation. I have seen strange characteristics in individuals as well as groups of people that basically fall along these lines. This specific group is very intelligent, very aware, seems to know, what's going on, has what appears to be a critical, analytical thinking mental process that is completely, people use the term brainwash. I prefer brain stained, and brainwashing is what actually needs to happen. But the brain stained have this particular area. It's kind of like Tourette's or something. They just kind of get stuck there. And whenever they get into that particular subject, there is it's like switches are reset. And you go, how does that happen? What's going on in there? And I think that's a result of what Gad Sad talks about as the mental parasites. Mental parasites are based on words, and words, and as another part of the informatic we're not going to get into because we're already getting squirreled here, but in one of the important aspects of informatica about sourcing and sussing your information is understanding that language is the operating system of the mind. And when you let that sink in and realize that in the language are the words, that's how the language is made up. Oh, there's symbols and there's sounds and other stuff and letters and so forth, but there are words that have a definition. Depending on the definition stack that you've gathered in your words and how you're processing them, you may come out completely uninformed and at a minimum and misinformed at worst. And I think that's a lot of what's happened out there. But it's interesting how again, from my perspective, it's like, how can somebody be so intelligent and yet be so wrong on that? And when you look at it and you go, well, isn't there enough empirical data? Don't want to look at that empirical data. Aha. So the worm has sunk its prey, has sunk its teeth into the prey and has a firm grip. And you go, well, so anyway, enough of that rant. Whoa. Yeah, your audio was really bad there.
All right, I'll get out of that.
So Teresa says, isn't each human actually a magnet through which the source energy flows? Yes, in the sense that the magnetism is what's attracting it. the law of people talk about the law of attraction. Well, that's just the law of magnetism, really, from my perspective, because everything that we see is it can be understood, or at least you can define the experience in a common language that the majority of people, or for the most part, anybody who is open and aware will look at it and go, well, yeah, that's the way the information actually is. And maybe he doesn't agree with what you thought before, but intelligence, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to make a little pull over to the side here. The artificial intelligence thing that has sucking all the oxygen out of the air, actually the nitrogen too, is based on hyperbole, muss and fuss, and sex and sizzle, when the substance of it and understanding what it is, none of this Kurzweil singularity, from that to Musk and his bots to the AGIs and the EIEIOs. You can't take the transfer of sentience, of self-awareness, clearly, and just looking at the reality we inhabit, requires an organic system to be in. Anything that's going back to the discussion about what is the nature of the philosophy of consciousness, and what is that nature? What does it do? It's always in motion. Don't know why, don't know how, it just is. It apparently expresses itself as energy. Energy is the way that it is. And that energy is expressed in frequencies. Everything else falls out of that. The Ethereum, where all of the non-corporeal spirit type frequency stamps inhabit, that's the ether. All the other stuff is the materium. So you got the Ethereum and the materium. There you go, Sarah. Don't forget to take your shot.
All right. I guess we can continue on now, and we'll see where it ends up.
Yeah, I want to get to these. We've got some great videos that, instead of listening to me yabber on about whatever the hell I think, some really cool stuff that can show some of the things I'm talking about as it relates to frequencies. Okay, so we're going to get into the frequencies. This image I really like because it shows a number of the different aspects of what people are typically thinking about as far as frequencies. You've got the chakra points, which in Chinese meridian and TCM models are the energy lines within our body, right? And there are points along those bodies, and that's what the chakras are, in my opinion. They're just they are concentrations of magnetic energy. That energy has all kinds of additional influences around it. I think it's really important to think about just that fundamental awareness. Don't try to put a label on it. Don't try to define it. Just say, at a minimum, it's a magnetic energy, and each one of your organs, every part of our body has its own magnetic field. It is its own. And when you realize and think about that, then the focus that you can put on working with that energy can manifest some amazing stuff. And that has been clearly documented, let alone experienced by millions of people, including myself. But it's all about the energy. It's all about the frequencies, that the energy that you are, from the magnetism that exists. How are you connected with it? How are you thinking about it? How are you aware of it? Are you taking it into consideration for your move from now to the next. I really like this image. Shows meridians, the energy flowing. Kind of related to this one because he's got his computer set up on the desk here while he's tapping into the astral realm.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, I've kind of experienced that. Yeah. So this doesn't come out as well as it could, but this is the chart of the meridians based on traditional Chinese medicine. I'm back in 85. I went to shiatsu school to learn shiatsu, traditional Chinese medicine, herbology, kinesiology, effleurage, all the massage techniques. And I couldn't stand needles. I still can't. So shiatsu is using different tools, your fingers in particular, for the same meridians. So it's acupressure as opposed to acupuncture. But if you think about these lines of energy, that's pretty much the way that we experience it. Doesn't mean that it's not there if you're not aware of it. But this is really important. All right, so I'd like to show a little video. It's about 3 or 4 minutes of Tesla, or at least focused on some of that technology. And I think you'll see some of what I'm talking about in this video. Give me a 5 by if you can hear it.
I heard of a man who might be able to help, and dragged me to him despite my reservations.
Is it in? You just...
He uses acupuncture needles in the traditional points, but with a twist. Through them, he directs a form of electricity, as he calls it. But he doesn't draw the electricity from a wall socket. He claims to generate it within his own body. It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all. He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yang positif and negative, and positive and negative, and we limit together, this can get electricity.
And this is because you're special, you have a special sort of
meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. Like a yoga. But I studied about 18 years.
18 years.
18 years from my child.
Can you project this energy through your hands only or through other things as well?
Like you can touch me. Like this is nothing, okay? It's my member. Just like this.
Our sound recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first. Later, he tells us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin and yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper. Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he healed my eyes made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know that we of the West have forgotten?
When he heard we'd shown this footage in public, he was very upset and refused all our future efforts to contact him again. As the years passed, we sadly resigned ourselves to never seeing him again. My brother Lorne never did, for by 1997 he was already dead when I again found myself with DJ, now treating me for an eye problem. But it wasn't this that brought me back. He tracked me down out of the blue and invited me to tell me a story. He had just returned from 2 years on a deep meditational journey, alone in the heart of Borneo. Amongst his revelations, he had seen, he said, how history was moving on into great change, and the old wisdom was vanishing. So he called me back to film just enough of him to remind us that we all have undreamed of powers sleeping within us, and that there's nothing special about him except for his training in waking. He seems able to control the amplitude of this chi, like a dimmer switch, and it causes uncontrollable responses in the patients and their grounders.
So, thoughts on that?
That was interesting. I don't know if it's my audio messing up. I apologize, everybody, but there was a little bit of an echo, so it was hard to understand some parts. But as far as the visual, it was awesome.
Yeah, folks in the chat, can you give us a check on the audio there? Was it okay? Could you hear everything? Audio okay? Great. Thanks, Karen. So, I think that, as he said in the documentary or in that little clip, that we all have the ability to do what he does is the fundamental truth. It's the fundamental way in which reality works and functions. How it does it, why it does it, source of that does it, that is total speculation and up for grabs. But at a minimum, the experience we have is common in that way. And this is an example of a highly tuned and focused attempt to dial into that frequency. So one of the questions earlier was about, foreseeing the future. And I think I kind of got squirreled and didn't finish that answer. So from my perspective, what happens in clairvoyance and those types of predictive events and information are basically reading the frequencies and the direction that they're heading, and the kind of doing essentially a trends analysis on, here's the frequencies now, where are they kind of going? Because we're always looking at where the hell we're going, whether we're paying attention to where we're going or not, and whether we're doing it intentionally or not. So I guess that would be typically referred to as being engaged, being present while life is in session, being cognizant of being sus in situ, sussing out the situation and understanding what it is, gathering the data, run it through your filters, do your predictive analysis, project next, and make a choice. And that's basically what we do. That's how we function. All kinds of extremes of that, all kinds of different nuances within it. depending on the characterization of the words that are used in the language, which are the operating system of your mind.
That's the tough part, isn't it? Whether you have your filters blocking so much that you're not intact with everything coming into you, the information, because sometimes you don't even perceive it. You just kind of go on amongst your way and day-to-day stuff, and you don't realize all this stuff is coming into you until you clear your consciousness and be able to receive.
That is truth. And the challenge, see, the majority of people that are swimming through this tsunami of and deluge of data and crap, they weren't even they were robbed of the fundamental responsibility in order to get the most out of all the stuff that's going on. And that is, when I grew up, we were taught how to think. And we had to learn how to think because we had all these responsibilities. You had to be accountable, responsible, take your own initiative. I mean, any kind of non-participation is a part as you participating in the populace of the peeps and all their perspectives. If you weren't doing that, you didn't. It was hard to navigate that. You got pushed back all over the place. There was all kinds of obstacles in your way if you weren't paying attention and had the accountability for self. If you're going to have the sovereignty of self, you need to have the provenance of self, which the sovereignty would, I think, kind of by default imply. Well, then that means that whatever you do and you lay wherever you lay, that's your stuff. And that's been hijacked through theologies, belief systems, sciences, philosophies, mixed, mangled, and mushed about to come up with some kind of carefully crafted and curated narrative that has been packaged depending on the requirements. You're trying to herd a bunch of people. You're trying to bring people into submission. You're trying to conquer people. You're trying to influence people. You're trying to sway and persuade and push and cajole and nudge into an energy field and an energy set of energy frequencies that are designed for your herdness and for you to become a part of the herd and stay within the herd. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I want to bring up Raymond's statement. Raymond suffered a stroke and now he's rewiring his brain or trying to get all the senses and all the stuff back in order.
Wow. Yeah, positive energy your way, Raymond. I mean, the fact that you're aware of it is, to me, the most important part of it, that you have that awareness to work on it, because where you focus your mind and that mental energy, that's where psychic healing, remote healing, healing in general in its purest form comes from the energy that is put on it. And that energy is, that's what thought and thinking is the expression of energy in what we call our minds and our individuality. So we speak what we experience, and we've used well, let me back up. We speak based on the definitions that we've used to define the experiences that we've had. So the definitions, that's why to me, the whole linguistics thing is really important. The vocabulary, the use of words, what their actual meaning is. And in a lot of cases, which I've found quite fascinating, is the original source meaning, especially in the ones that have just completely changed, was not only more specific, but it was richer. It meant more, like logos in Greek. Logos is used for all kinds of symbols, words, names. But it has a specific idea that it is a representation of, right? Of something, whatever the hell it is. So I don't know. I got kind of rambled on that. Thank you for your indulgence
All right.
and my apologies. Okay, so I've got a few more things I'd like to share here. One of the things that I find, one of the metrics in the matrix that we use, that are used across the sciences for a variety of different disciplines and reasons, is this construct of this thing that we, as I was saying earlier, the atmosphere around us has everything that we need in it. We can extract energy from the ether, from the air that we breathe, all the energy we need, all of the water we need, and we can communicate wherever we want with whoever we want because of that atmosphere. This diagram shows what is typically delineated as the atmosphere that surrounds our planet that we inhabit. And you can see in the diagram where most of the things that we are aware of that happens in the atmosphere, where they tend to occur. The troposphere, the closest to the Earth, and the stratosphere, where you get your balloons and planes. The mesosphere, where the comets come in. The thermosphere, where we see the magnetic fields and reactions of that we call aurora at the poles of the planet. And then we have the exosphere, where they get out there, and that's where they put the spaceships and satellites and all of the stuff. Each one of these has a different frequency set. We have metrics that we use to define those frequency sets, which is why they call them what they do. They've given them names from 0 to around 18 kilometers above the surface of the Earth is the troposphere. From 11 to somewhere around 50 kilometers is the stratosphere. 40 to 50 to 80 to 90 is where the mesosphere is. And then you get up to around 800 and up past 1,000 kilometers for both the thermosphere and the exosphere. So I've had this, and I will admit it, I enjoy it. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I certainly do enjoy it. I like to go in and mess with the physics community. And I really like to go in and participate in the memes and the discussions about quantum mechanics and physics and thermodynamics and all of this. And it's quite fun to drop the unmentionables into those conversations. And what's really, I kind of had thought there'd be some of that kind of, reaction, the triggered thing. It's like, wait a minute, you can't put that information in there. We've all run into that situation where that information is not acceptable. In fact, the fact that you're bringing that to the table makes you a nefarious and questionable person. And you have those conversations and you go, well, okay, and I know where your triggers are. I'll move over this way because I don't want to engage in that. I'm not interested in in-depth, highly focused, narcissistic discussions and data exchanges. Again, going back to the whole thing, you've got to have some kind of normalization of language and the words. And we've gotten so far away from that it's confused and added unnecessary chaos in the conversation. And that's where the mental parasites and the worms are able to take hold, because they're taking hold in the minds that, unlike my generation, I'm sorry, I'm going to stick up for my geezer geeks. Okay. We are one. Okay. We were taught how to think because we had the responsibility of accountability. That is nowhere near what is being discussed in the discourse and the conversation, whether they're learned discussions and participants or not. It's like, wait a minute, you guys are all, you've all been, you have fully engaged in what to think. How to think is apparently not working. Because if you knew how to think, you would think about what you're thinking about, and then you'd realize that your thinking about the thinking needed some rethinking. So anyway, sorry to go on a little rant there, but I tell you, that kind of stuff, maybe it's, I know I'm not at the old man on the porch, get off my lawn yelling at the moon yet, but I can feel it coming. All right, let's move along here. Another perspective of metrics is understanding how we put measurement around sound and light, which to me are the core fundamental of the infinite frequency set is based on what we understand and call sound and light. That vibration, the frequencies that vibrate in what we call the sound and light spectrum is very, very limited to what we have been able to find outside of it with telemetry. It's like, let's go measure that. Now that we know this is there, let's go measure that, and let's go plot it, and let's do some data analysis. Traditional. What's going on here? Is there a pattern? Is there anything that's going on that could give meaningful information? If you don't look, you don't know, right? So in the current way, in this particular image, looking at the frequency range and the color spectrum is the most important thing to me, because I think we experience this in ways that we're not necessarily aware of. But if we were aware, we would have a different relationship with it, which oddly enough is the one of the main themes in a lot of the different dimensional information sets, I guess we'll call them. Basically, people who are channeling or experiencing and sharing different frequency sets. Because to me, it's all frequency sets. And it's just a matter of what kind of metrics you want to put around it. Does it make sense? Is it something you want to do? Or is it something you don't? Does it fit your preferences? And do those preferences match up with any of the other patterns that you've stored, that you're filtering it through? To me, that's just how it works. Now, you can package it and put it into any kind of theology, belief system, and any cosmology of any way in which you want to construct it. And even if you want to throw in some of the new fantasy stuff, which has also got a lot of the ancient lore packaged in them in different ways. And Star Trek was the first and probably one of the most focused, but the Matrix, oh boy, you want to see the way this stuff can be packaged? Go dig some of that.
Yeah.
So I really like this image because it gives some kind of visual context to the content. Okay. So we're down here in this materium. We're experiencing the materium manifestation of the, that saying, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. To me, it's really, I'm an energetic being having a biologically spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Because that, for me, removes all of the labels and the packaging and the bows and, the stickers and the cards and all that shit that gets wrapped into whatever ideology somebody's trying to push to persuade the many. And that is the history that we know. So this whole spectrum here down, you see where the V comes down and it kind of points within that rainbow at the bottom of it.
Right.
The telemetry of our biology, which in a longer definition means our be able sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. But those are our senses, right? Those are the sensory tools, the telemetry tools that we have in order to pick up the reality we inhabit and the information in it, the spectrums. So we're getting a small slice of all that's out there, and we use all the rest of this is out there for all kinds of things. A perfect example is going back to the air that surrounds us, our atmosphere, right? The nitrogen and the oxygen and the trace stuff that we need in order for the biological system to maintain its parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Here's an interesting thought experiment. Everybody listening right now is breathing. But until I said, can you control your breathing, or that you are breathing, you weren't thinking about breathing.
Yeah.
So you can go from, right? So you can go from an autonomous habit of your nervous system, your respiratory system, and you can take control of it. And then you can let go of it, and it happens automatically. Isn't that fascinating?
Absolutely.
I mean, until you think about it, you don't think about it, which is thinking about it, I guess. So the spectrum is wide. The piece we get is small. The ability and the capability of just what we've measured with the toys and the tools that we've got now is this. And I posit that it's way beyond this. They don't have a metrics for this matrix. But this is the one that is accepted in the official definition of our reality. Okay. Another different view of it. Low energy down at the low hertz. High energy is in the more purple colors. The visible stuff that we get is just that slice of the wavelengths we know of. Quite fascinating to me. It's like, you mean there's more out there? Well, how do I get more of that?
Yeah.
This was interesting that it gives another visual perspective of the higher level atmosphere and the frequency bands that are happening in our atmosphere right now. I can't hear my phone. My phone is on, but it's got 5G and it's just sitting there, which is totally different from my internet connection, which is all wired. It's all cable. There's no other frequency sets that are being admitted. When you realize that these frequencies are constantly in the air that we breathe, that we can get everything from, it's all there all the time. So the air is apparently a substance in and of itself, in that it facilitates magnetic energy expressed in a broad range of frequencies in a long, broad spectrum, that all of the things that we experience and that we check reality with are all available in all of these different spectrums. So you go, well, apparently everything's a frequency, from the consciousness that we use to engage with and suss out the reality we participate in, especially when we're not keen on participating at the moment. right? Maybe it's like, I don't want any of this right now. Right, Gerald?
Yep. So I don't know if my voice is all right, if I'm still crackling, or am I okay?
Sounds great.
All right. So my curious about charts like this and our perspective or what we perceive is, okay, when we have a piercing the veil moment or a time lapse, for that brief moment, are we going outside of our spectrum, or how is that?
Well, again, from my subjective speculation, what people experience as time loops or phases or shifts is something that happens in the fabric of the frequency fields. And it is apparently something that exists because at least the anecdotal and the minimal empirical data suggests that, I mean, an entire range of divination and psychic abilities and capabilities are all over the map, documented for millennia. So being able to think about it from the standpoint of what is the empirical experience that I'm having, because again, that's the only truth anybody can have, is their own understanding of the data that they know and how that data has been packaged. And the packaging has gotten incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good, right? Okay, so here's another way to look at it, and then a different breakdown. You got the radio spectrum with the different devices down here in these bands, right? You got the frequency. And here's an interesting thing about, and this is where, again, science falls flat, because they have no definition agreed upon, peer-reviewed, which is in that whole process has been exposed dramatically lately over the last few years. But the entire science model is based on bullshit. It's like, yeah, I trust the science, and when I follow the science, all I find is money. It's like, and all kinds of, absurdities that clearly nobody apparently is being held accountable for. Because being held accountable, again, going back to the geezer days of the 60s and 70s, if you didn't take care of your shit, you were going to get called out for your shit. And you needed to. But nonetheless, let me move on. I've got a couple of more quick videos that I think we can close out with that might be enjoyable.
All right.
So when people think about the mind and the brain, this is one of the many slides that I hacked out to get it into some reasonable time frame. But the mind is not in the brain. And I'll just toss that little quick reference caveat. According to my opinion, my working hypothesis and observational analysis, the WOA. So the brain is the same as any other organ in the body. Heart pumps the blood, the stomach and the intestinal system processes the fuel. The muscular system gives the bones the go. The brain is the nervous system that connects them all. It has a relationship to the consciousness, in that consciousness being what people would refer to as the mind. That mind resides and is from the source of the force of which we hope is guiding our course. So that source, that energy, is from consciousness. Consciousness, as I went over earlier, has a nature and habit about it, which is that it is always in motion, which seems to be a forward motion, seems to be constantly as the result of that motion in creating something at a minimum novelty or creating something new. It's always in motion. So if energy is the expression of consciousness, is how consciousness expresses motion, then the energy of consciousness is what is the source of everything that exists. Now, there is no, in our current physics and understanding and knowledge of the officialdom scientific models, there is no definition for consciousness. It is known as the hard problem in all sciences. Because as soon as you introduce the observer effect, one who is having a subjective, personal, empirical experience, all of a sudden is like, okay, well, you can't, you can try to say that didn't happen. You can try to deny it. You can try to influence and manipulate it all you want. But if the sovereignty of the self is being accountable and responsible to its own existence, then it's going to stick with what it knows, because it can only know that. That frequency, that unique frequency expression of energy, the frequency signature, the frequency stamp is is the expression of consciousness in the creative motion and in the creative act. So we, at some point, somewhere within this constant creation of consciousness and its constant creation and expression of that creation through energy, which is simply it's simply expressed as an infinite field of frequencies. You can put multiple dimensions, multiple universes, omniverses, timelines. You can put whatever you want in there because it can accommodate it. So we as individuals are an expression of the creation that happened in consciousness when we popped out.
Oh.
I mean, does that make any sense whatsoever? Am I getting roasted in the chat?
No, they're going back and forth on stuff like that, whether the mind's a soul or.
Well,
they're digging it. They're just working it out themselves in the chat.
So your audio is breaking up again. So if you want to duck out and duck back in, I'll move on to the next part of it. But to answer that, or to jump into that part of the discussion, soul and spirit are two of the words that have been manipulated the most, in my opinion, for the use of the construct of reality that you exist in. And animus is the Greek term for a soul. So as applied to the word animal, and this is something that is lost, I think, that people need to add to their stack of the information with which you filter your shit. Don't ask me for a link, but I'm working on it. So the way in for millennia, for the civilizations that we have been able to uncover, decipher, interpret, posit on, write about, and so forth, they all have a lot of commonality. And one of the most fundamental ones is that something or someone from up above came down here, told us stuff, showed us stuff, taught us stuff, and in some cases kind of messed with us enough to where we are who we are today. And there is a lot of very compelling information across that spectrum. Knowing which are true that's like an ongoing thing. And that's one of the things about speculation. Once you realize that you fine tune that speculation perspective meter and that whole process within your system, you can sort through shit real fast. It becomes a hell of a lot easier to navigate the nonsense and find the nuggets. That's my personal experience, but I think let's see. Are we ready to move on here? So, Jane, I think you're out there. This picture I selected thinking of you because
Nice.
I could be right in the middle of that and soaking that stuff up big time.
That's a great picture.
There's a lot going on there, huh? Yeah, she loves it. Great. So, I think I've thrown enough of the disconnected shiny objects in with trying to keep it close to being in the guardrails. So let's see if we can get to the end here. And of this, like I said, I pulled out 20, maybe 30 slides, and I'd really like to go deeper into the sonic realms, which we're gonna get a little taste of it here. But this picture, for example, is one of those visual expressions that has its own resonance to it, right?
Yes.
And it feels kind of nice. It feels like, whoa, I'd like to go in there, to me.
Absolutely. Very inviting.
And you see all the symbology and the geometry and just the way that from a somatics perspective, right? Because I think one of the things that I personally have found extremely illuminating in the pursuit of understanding as much about frequency and vibrations as I can, and what are they? How do I dial into that data stack and go swimming around in there? Why I need to know. So somatic,
that would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate goal, is not just to hear it with our ears, but to be immersed, our whole mind, body, and soul, and be in that field and just wash your whole body and senses with it.
So the sonic realm with the visual realm and the combination of that, we've seen an incredible skill set with all of the movies for at least the last 20 years. And in particular, the ones that were produced way beyond and anything else. And I put the Marvel series in there. The sonic and visual combinations were just some of the best out there. Especially, I'll admit it. I did have a geezer geek moment when Tony Stark is blowing up all this 3D stuff and being able to manipulate it in midair and create things and all. I got my geezer on.
There you go.
I went, are you kidding me? I want some of that. All right. Oh, look, you get a break. Another video. Oh. So I think that last one was on the, it was tied in the Chinese meridians and the Qigong and the energy that he expressed just from having control because of focus of the energies that are naturally and innately there. And he just channeled the shit out of that. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this one is the one on Tesla, I believe. Yeah, because the other one's after that. So give me a 5 by if you get the sound, and if we do, enjoy. You notice how the higher the hertz, the more complex?
Yes. That was awesome.
So we're going to see a really cool expression of that here on the last video. But again, for reference, I think it's really important that people have a framework based on some metrics that you're kind of measuring shit through. And there's a real common band of data sets that are just happening in a common reality that we all experience and share, like weather and, you know, all of the different things that we use to exist. But we all experience pretty much the same reality because we're all in it together, at least to some extent, or at least to a common extent. So there's a shared reality within this consciousness band that we all inhabit. Seems to be required for the spiritual biological expression that our energy, our individual frequency stamp and signature is resonating at. It has its own uniqueness, its own capabilities, its own potentialities and possibilities, but it has a core stamp of shared reality that enables the navigation through the reality with all the rest of the peeps. So the cool thing, to me, the really cool things about this frequency spectrum is what happens in hearing and music. Because I'll just put it out there right now. If I wasn't a human being, I'd be a musical note looking for a tune to play on. Because that's how sound and music does me. I'm captive. I am there. So when I think about what are the metrics used to define the experience I'm having? Well, there are certain things like rhythm and tone and key and that's right, frequencies that are the domain of different sonic expressions, kicks and bass, snares, having your guitars. I'm a musician, been one since, for 50 years more. And it is just, my whole family was musical. Somebody was singing or playing something. And it just became my little refuge that I've hung on to since I was young. Well, in that experience, there's these ranges of sounds, low ends, mid lows, mid range, highs. The expression of the sonic realm from the frequency sets is what the most vibratory. Cheryl, I think I might have brought it back to the top. Did I?
What's that?
I think I just brought it back. I think I just said it's all about the frequencies and the vibrations.
Oh, we're starting over again?
Well, I'm trying to tie it back
Yeah,
to
you
make
did.
sure, because I got one more video. But the range of hearing is not all that we hear. But what we do hear, and in particularly everything from Bach to the Beatles, is based in this 12-note temporal scale, temporal harmonics, that is a slight tweak to the natural harmonics that our reality that exhibits. So the typical hearing range is 20 hertz to 20,000. Most of what people are able to hear now is, I think, somewhere in the 100 to 200 hertz to about 12,000, because those other ranges have been pummeled and pounded and beat into submission. They've been beat into obscurity. I can't listen to that anymore. So you turn that off. So that's a really important thing that I think is important to make sure that you realize, is that the information you're getting and you're using in these sonic ranges could potentially be compromised. It could be maybe you're not getting the whole picture. Maybe you're not getting the full range. Maybe your spectrum allocation needs to be re-examined. But it's really cool in the space that we know it, in this musical space. Because I tell you what, I'm a sound guy. I have incredible sound, and I bathe in my sound daily. I have surround. I have nice systems that I know how to do the acoustic sonic representation model. And when you can nail that down with the right toys, with the right toys, I'll leave it at that. You can sit there and go, whoa, I had a friend of mine over the other night, and I said, "Come on, let's. I've got some music videos I'd like to share with you." So we loaded up. I've got a 70-inch with the surround sound and the nice chairs, and I sat him down. I said, "Have some of this." And thank God it was something he not only didn't know exist, he'd never even heard of him. And it was George Duke, the Funkmeister, and a live performance he did. And it was just, I mean, the recording, the production, everything was just stellar. It was like watching and in fact, he's sitting there and he's going, "I've never seen anything like this. What is this? Is this a DVD?" And I said, "No, it's YouTube." And he's sitting there going, this is making me feel like, like the world is right again. So that power of the 12-note Western scale system that we have grown up with has been unbelievably powerful, but there was so much more there. Different subject, another rabbit hole. Let me see if I can get to this.
My experience was my first awesome professional set of headphones with a hi-fi stereo from the Pink Floyd.
Right.
Where you can actually hear the music on the top of your head, like hovering around you instead of like you hear a normal speech or anything.
You feel it within your, it's like one of my words, one of my favorite words, and bringing more focus to it in the struggle of the linguistics is gnosis. And the original Greek definition of that was not just a knowing, but something that you felt in your bones.
Oh yeah.
That's another level of know in their perspective, and I agree with it. So Jane, this one's for you too. So what's interesting from my perspective, this demonstrates some very interesting information, some very interesting metrics that are individual yet connected and expressed in their own way across sound, light. Color really is a subset of light. Waves, just radio waves. But when you look at this, you go, so if I want that low C, I'm going to be at about 256, 257 hertz. What can I do with that?
Right.
And there is a corresponding color spectrum to that frequency spectrum of that harmonic spectrum. So this is like nested data. And then you're going to throw the pace de resistance. It is in a Fibonacci circle spiral.
That's what I noticed right away.
Well, this to me is one of the ways to connect the dots while you're doing your data analysis in your intelligence processing. So what I mean by that is that so I've harped before, I will stop and stamp again. The definition of the terms and language is critical to the process of information and its sharing and the exchange thereof. So when you've got a lot of different terms and definitions, words and definitions that need to be nominalized at a minimum, let alone normalized, but at least nominalized in that that there's what that is, but you're going to need to manage that. It's going to take some work. And unfortunately, but fortunately, not only is it, and the unfortunate side is that not only is it a task, and it's a must-do task if one prefers the pursuit of the positive navigation, as you travel your path. If you're not trying to optimize your experience and how you not react to it, but how you respond to it, then you're not gonna get as much out of it as you could. And that starts with having a fundamental naked nugget. I always say, if you know it, then you got to get to the nut of the nugget in order to figure out what it is and go from there. The problem is the nuggets that are important that you need to get clarification, a surety, or some kind of whatever, at a minimum clarification, is the stuff about reality. And all that stuff's been packaged and manipulated to tell you that this is who and them, or this is not and they, or this is some kind of combination thereof, some nuanced, multi-layered expression of that spirals up the possibilities. I can go there, and I like going there because that's when I find out the good stuff for me. But I'll tell you what, free balling in consciousness is where it's at. Did I just say that? So let's move on, shall we?
Okay.
So this little piece. So we were talking about music, right?
Yep.
We showed some cymatics before that, right? You be there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. So we went over the cymatics, right?
Yep.
So we've got music and cymatics. Now, this is going to combine the two of them in a very artistic and extremely well done perspective. So you're going to have cymatics, the movement of material with sound, and you're going to have music performing the movement of the material by sound. Now, if that made any sense, you're welcome. In the meantime, enjoy this. Give me a 5x on the sound of. All right. What'd you guys think of that? What'd you think, Gerald?
That was awesome.
How about all y'all in the chat? What'd you think of that?
They all liked it. Except
Well-
Freaky Geek. I'm not sure about Freaky Geek.
Well, to me, the most interesting and extremely well done thing about that video was not only the production. I mean, it was great shots. I mean, they produced the shit out of that, but they produced it because they had stuff to produce, which is one of the things I learned as a newbie producer for a record label that I formed out of nowhere, not knowing I was going to form it. Being a producer, being able to produce something is that's what the Rick Rubins and and that class of cats, the Jimmy Iovines, those guys are the shit because they have been able to produce good stuff. So the production was extremely well done. I mean, extremely well done. But the key thing was the use of sound and frequencies on materials, on different substances, on different things that they were able to manipulate simply by the sound. That is the nature of frequency and vibration.
Yeah, that was a great video.
So to wrap it up, this Informatica model that I'm currently adopting as my system for processing the information of the reality that I inhabit is based on this kind of hierarchical flow. I think this is where everything kind of starts and ends up. Starts with consciousness. Nobody's got a definition for that, but by God, if we didn't have conscious, there would be no reality. So, and then the whole thing of the debate about free will, it's like saying that, and some very learned, incredibly intelligent, I was mentioning before, individuals who have studied the shit and explored and gone after these knowledge domains have these perspectives that you go, how can you have that perspective? But the one thing that they all share in common, regardless of the wacky or the woo or the staid and the true, the whole perspective of reality and the lack of being able to solve what is known as the hard problem in all sciences, which is consciousness. As soon as you introduce the observer effect, everything is up for grabs. And there's so much empirical data about that. So whatever that is, however it is, whenever it was and is and will be, is this thing called consciousness that we all have this shared experience and reality in that we inhabit. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now. But the way that consciousness appears to express itself is in this magnetic energy set of frequencies. It seems to emanate existence, if you will. It is this thing that we define and we understand in the limited way that we do, this thing called energy, which again is one of those things that science, just like consciousness, cannot define. They can't agree. There's all these forms and all these ways it manifests. And we have we've learned enough about it to harness it and provide the energy that we need, which is the exact opposite of what is actually there that we need, that will give and do everything that we need as far as energy, water, and communication. Different rabbit hole, we'll save it for another time. But that's what energy is. That's what frequencies are. Frequencies wave. Wave requires space and time to wave in. So if everything is a wave, which the quantum folks have finally gotten to, nothing is solid, it's always a wave. So they finally got to that point. They're still just dismissing the ether, the nature of energy of the atmosphere and existence, which I'm going to, now that I remember, I'm going to take a little pull over to the side here. We're not going to make a turn. We're just going to pull over and have a moment, right?
All right.
Here's an observation of reality that I've asked recently. As I mentioned earlier, I like to go in and poke around on the physics folks and say, well, what about this? And watch them kind of go on tilt. But one of the things that I've actually used and enjoyed using, I will admit, I might be proud a little bit, but is going in and saying, hey, space is a vacuum, right? Well, of course it is. Nothing can exist in a vacuum, right? Well, nothing corporeal because there's nothing in the vacuum for the corporeal to manifest. Okay. So if space is a vacuum, how is the earth in the space?
Oh.
How is the sun in the space? How is the galaxy and the cosmos in this vacuum of space where nothing is supposed to exist? And you go, there's a lot of consternation in trying to answer that. And as I said, we'll pull off the curb now, but I enjoy going in and asking questions like that, because to me, the most important thing in defining your if your filter is unclogged, maintained, and calibrated, is the information that you let in that filter. Because it's real easy to find the stuff that shouldn't be. You shouldn't. If anything, if it's clogging your filter, you just need to know that, regular maintenance of clearing that shit off is good. You have to consider all information, but you can screen out more than you thought you could in order to save the who you are. Because otherwise you're like, okay, wait a minute, there's too much thinking going on here. There's too many words, there's too many changes, there's too many what, and it's too loud. And if you ever wanted to figure out what you shouldn't listen to and what you should, my current working assumption and hypothesis is the louder it is, the less I'm going to pay attention to it. And the silence, the more silenced it is, the more attention I am going to pay to it. So that has been proving, at least in my opinion, and I'm just another dude in the wilderness watching the world go by and calling balls and strikes.
There you go.
So what we have is a consciousness that expresses itself energetically or magnetically in a infinite frequency set, which then the ethereum, the non-corporeal, the spirit realm, the dimensional realm, all those different delineations fall into, which is also separate from but inclusive of the materium. The materium being the physical world that we experience, going back to the frequency examples. There's all these different spectrums of frequencies that we've been able to identify. And we've been able to identify that small set that we have access to with the biological meat suit that we inhabit. It's got a limited sense, but the mind doesn't. The mind, being separate from the brain, it is the interface between the biological reaction and function and the ethereal, which is the frequency stamp that we are all unique from and by in the infinite frequency fields of the conscious energy that is always in motion and constantly moving into some apparently creative construct. It's always creating. There's always something new. We're never in the now, we're in the next. So that materium, those frequencies, manifest in this, what we define as the incorporeal and the corporeal, ethereum and the materium. This is where the energy and the water and the communications come from. They're all in here.
Okay.
But all of that manifests into what we know as the universe. That universe, going back to the model of the philosophy of nature of reality, is that nested thing. Everything is a wholeness in and of itself, the subatomic to the atomic to the molecular, the molecular to the cellular, to the the self-organizing collectives, the starlings, the fish, to the planet, to the solar system, to the galaxy, to the universe. Each is a greater whole of the lesser wholes below it. And they come together to create a greater whole. And that's what in my opinion, what our universe, our reality is based on. So in that environment, there's apparently this penchant for this thing that we know or call life. Things that are organic, that have their own apparent, whether conscious or in a different conscious level, they have a conscious. I think plants, animals, all that have a consciousness, and it's not a different level. It's degrees of consciousness. There are different stages of it. Because if consciousness is the reason that everything exists, then anything that manifests down here is going to have the characteristics of that consciousness. It becomes kind of by default. And again, just from an observational, being objectively neutral and an observational analysis of that, looking at it going, well, that seems to be the way it's working. And it seems to manifest in a carbon. There's also, we've got information about a silica type manifestation of organic materials. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff in the other. But from that carbon, there's this humanoid construct. Almost all of the definitions of extraterrestrial encounters, from Greys to Arcturians to Palladians, to give it all that you got, reptilians, there seems to be a common construct of a humanoid form in that there's a torso, there's legs, there's arms, a head. They may not look anything like ours, but that's a construct. So it seems to be the universe, at least in the materium we are experiencing, seems to have a proclivity for a humanoid construct. That humanoid construct has developed theologies, philosophies, and sciences to define its existence.
Yes.
To define its relationship from the origin, from the source of the force that guides the course. Consciousness seems to be responsible for all of this, and the frequency set that we are experiencing and inhabit has this carbon-based humanoid construct that has come up with these ways in which to explain itself. And then we define all of that as experience, knowledge, wisdom, understanding and wisdom, and enlightenment. So,
yes.
My God, we made it through 31 slides.
There we have it. Yeah, I like that last slide where we actually, as being humans, we try to think, therefore I am, and try to put it all together to make sense to us.
Well, that's all we can all do, though, right? I mean,
Right.
if you know, for me, when I realized that everything is speculation, and the last 4 or 5 years have been a deluge of data that when you sit down and you gather it and you put some kind of thought into it, and you look it over, you go, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of questions I got here. Because I think we talked about this on the last show. My experience is the more stuff I'm served as that which is at a minimum from an official perspective, it's that, if you want to know what that is, there it is, right? And they give you this packaged crap, and you look at it and you go, I got some questions about the origins and the content of what you're selling me here. And if you're going to tell me that I am required in order to be acceptable and, you know, be able to focus in society, I have to adhere to a definition I can't agree with. Well, now we might have a problem.
I agree.
So when you look at the stuff, so what did you think overall? What was your impression? Did I get the vibration and frequency component across this time?
Yes, I think you did a very good job of streamlining it and bringing it all together, especially that video that showed everything all together, the light, the frequency, vibrations all together. And I mean, I just loved it all the way through.
Well, thank you. It felt, you know, I was trying to put together, like I was saying, my subjective perspective of an observational, with observational neutrality. That was the spoon. So I'm going to take a spoon of this. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to get some whoa in there. And so my working hypothesis of observational analysis. And then what am I going to taste? Well, I'm going to get the wow, which is the world of woo. Because the woo is afoot. And the woo is showing up, I think, for a lot of people, woo is more about, that's information I didn't know. And I want to learn more about that information. I want to have some kind of, give me more content and context, right? So I think getting a perspective of frequency and vibration is not the woo and the wonderful or the, you know, the esoteric. There is a certain set of data that will get you to the woo without all that fluff and stuff. Oh, so if you don't mind, because I guess we're probably close to 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
See, you didn't interrupt me enough. I wanted to share those 3 channels that I showed you earlier. Hold on here. Okay. So let's go back here. Oh, hold on. I went too far. So I wanted to, we were talking about
Mind Tracks, Breath Stream.
And what
This
I wanted
breath
to
stream will change the way.
I wanted to share my YouTube channel, Mind Tracks, which is based on meditation and frequencies that will enable both, well, breath, the body, and the mind. And so that I've got 5 and 10 minute videos, and I've got actually some 30-minute as well, that take you through a guided process of learning how to breathe, how to then focus your body, and then you can tackle the mind. So I wanted to share that. There's playlists on the breath, the body, the mind. I also do a little bit of some quotes and contemplations. Can you hear that okay?
It's a little low, but I can hear it if we don't talk.
The mind of Plato. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything.
So I wanted to share that. That's one of the channels out there. The Nexus channel is also out there. All of these channels you can do YouTube and then / at Mindtrex at Nexus, and you'll find them.
Are they all linked on your website?
Yes. So that's got shows and interviews. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and share this because as a geezer geek, I have to admit, and I must confess, I've dived deep into the AI video and AI creation.
Oh,
and
no.
I have found it like, wait a minute, to, oh, that's really good. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I made this recently and this is, oh, I didn't share that. Hold on.
No, you didn't share it.
Sorry. Let me do that again. So it goes by quick. It's a short one. So basically, I put my face into the AI simulator system, and then I wrote the script, and then I read my own script, and then I put it into the video. But they did the AI did my face. Okay, let's see.
Welcome to the Metrics in the Matrix, Informatica, where reality is exposed for the truth that it is, consciousness.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's some cool stuff if it's used right. Oh, I think I'll go ahead and play this. So this is a piece that I just did.
Top alternative.
I'm going to do more content like this because I think that people, got it? Yeah. I think people are looking for shorter bites of information that they can, that fits more of what their interest might be, as well as looking at new things and alternatives. So I'm going to do kind of a regular update on different industry sectors and the trends and the tech and things that are going on. So this is one that I did recently.
Top alternative health trends for 2024. In the bustling sphere of health and wellness, the Western allopathic systems have long been the go-to solution. Born out of scientific discovery and technological advancements, they've taken a stronghold in our healthcare model. However, this dominance has not come without its drawbacks. An over-reliance on medication, a tendency for invasive procedures, and a lack of focus on prevention and holistic well-being have become characteristic of these systems. Rather than fostering health, we find ourselves in a cycle of treating symptoms, often overlooking the root causes of our ailments. This approach has led to a surge in chronic health issues, dissatisfaction among patients, and an overall decrease in the quality of life. The cost, both financially and physically, is high. This system, while effective in some cases, has shown to have numerous downsides. leading to a quest for alternative, more natural, and holistic health solutions. Enter the resurgence of health trends that are rooted in ancient wisdom and modern technology. From the resonating hum of sound therapies to the luminous glow of light technologies, we're seeing a revival of healing modalities that tap into the body's own healing mechanisms. Psychedelics such as psilocybin mushrooms are making waves, not just in the realm of mental health, but in personal growth and self-discovery too. Let's not forget the vibration and energy techniques like Qigong, a cornerstone of traditional Chinese medicine, along with acupuncture, massage, Tai Chi, and yoga. Ayurvedic therapies, with their focus on balance and wellness, are gaining popularity as well. Then there's the green wave of cannabis, hemp oils, creams, and CBD products, embraced for the therapeutic benefits. Energy therapies like Rife and Orgone treatments are also on the rise, harnessing the power of frequencies and life force energies. These health trends offer a refreshing contrast, focusing on healing the body naturally and holistically. The paradigm of health and wellness is shifting, and these upcoming trends are leading the charge. Imagine a world where technology and ancient wisdom blend seamlessly to promote health and well-being. This isn't a fantasy, but a tangible future we're stepping into thanks to these emerging trends. Sound technologies, light therapies, vibration and energy techniques like Qigong, and even psychedelics like psilocybin mushrooms are taking center stage. They're not just alternatives, but are becoming mainstream, focusing on prevention and holistic health rather than just treating symptoms. The beauty of these trends lies in their ability to tap into the body's natural healing abilities, offering a more personalized approach to health and wellness. Moreover, the resurgence of traditional therapies like Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine is truly remarkable. These time-tested therapies, along with practices like meditation, Tai Chi, and yoga, are proving that health is more than just the absence of disease. It's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. They offer a holistic perspective, addressing the root cause of health issues and not merely the symptoms. As we move away from the current Western allopathic systems, these trends are likely to become the new norm. They promise a future where healthcare is not just about treating illness, but about nurturing wellness. It's an approach that empowers individuals, encourages self-care, and promotes a deeper understanding of one's own body. The growth and acceptance of these trends is a testament to their effectiveness. It's no longer surprising to see cannabis, hemp oils, creams, and CBD being incorporated into health routines. These natural remedies, backed by scientific research, are helping manage chronic conditions, reduce inflammation, and improve mental health. Energy therapies like Rife and Orgone treatments are also making waves. These non-invasive techniques work on the principle of bioenergetics, restoring balance and promoting self-healing within the body. Such therapies are not just about physical health, but also about emotional and spiritual well-being. The future of health and wellness looks promising, with these emerging trends paving the way for a more natural, holistic, and patient-centered approach to healthcare. Thanks for watching the Nexus News. Please like, share, and subscribe. You know the thing. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. All right. Oh, your audio's bad again.
Oh.
All
We'll just end right here then.
right. Well, I hope that was entertaining and informative, but thank you for the time and the airness.
Thank you for coming out. I hope you hear me all right through the scrambling.
No, I can't understand you at all, but I'll stick around. All right.
All right, let's see if that helped.
Oh, that is much better.
All right. I don't know what's going on in my system other than I got an update today, and maybe I should have recycled it through one more time before we aired. I don't know.
Sometimes you got to do that with those. I mean, I have been in this business for over 40 years, and I'm never a V1 guy. I'm always, give me V2 plus before I try your software because I know that there's going to be bugs and problems and whatever, but those updates can cause havoc if and that's a pain in the butt. But I've been on Win 10 Pro for 5 or more years, and I've never had a problem with it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and say bye to everybody in chat, and we'll end this for now. And we made it past the 2.5 hour mark.
Wow. And cutting it off early.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. We love you. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments or anything, be sure to put them in after the show, and go to Robert's website and his social media and put comments in for him if you have any questions specific for Robert. And we're glad you all came. Love and peace to everybody, and keep your vibrations up. And we'll see you next time.
It's all about the vibe.
Thanks for coming, Robert.
Thank you for having me, Gerald.